Somewhere in the darkness beyond our solar system, moving at 38,000 miles per hour, there is an object that will outlive the sun. Not metaphorically, literally. Long after our star swells into a red giant and swallows the orbit of the Earth. Long after every city, every book, every language spoken today has turned to dust in geology, this object will still be moving, still intact, still carrying something inside it that was placed there deliberately, by hand, in 1977 for an audience that does not yet exist and may never exist at all. It is called the Golden Record, and it is bolted to the side of Voyager 1. And the question almost nobody asks, the question that matters more than anything else about this mission, is not what is on the record. People already know that. The question is what actually happens if someday something finds it. Stay with me, because the answer is stranger and more unsettling than you think. Let's start with what the record actually is, because most people only know the highlight reel. In 1977, a team led by the astronomer Carl Sagan was given an unusual assignment. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were about to launch into space carrying instruments designed to study planets, but someone at NASA made the decision that these two spacecraft, once their scientific missions ended, would keep traveling outward forever. And if they were going to keep traveling forever, they might as well carry something more than instruments. They might as well carry a message. The result was a gold-plated copper phonograph record sealed in an aluminum cover bolted to the frame of each spacecraft. On it, greetings recorded in 55 human languages, natural sounds of Earth, including wind, rain, and ocean waves. 90 minutes of music selected from cultures spanning the globe. Over 100 photographs encoded as analog data showing human anatomy, cities, food, family life, and images of the solar system, and a diagram explaining the basic physics required to play the record itself, alongside a map showing the location of our sun relative to 14 pulsars, each with a precisely timed signature that would allow any sufficiently advanced civilization to calculate exactly when the record was launched and exactly where it came from. Every element was chosen deliberately. Every element assumes a reader. That is the detail almost nobody sits with. The record was not designed to be admired by humans. It was designed to be understood by something that is not human, something that does not share our language, our biology, our sensory organs, our concept of art or math or time. Sagan and his team were not just choosing what to say, they were trying to guess how to be understood by an intelligence they could not describe, would never meet, and had no way of testing their assumptions against. That is the first strange thing about the Golden Record. It is arguably the most carefully considered message our species has ever created, built entirely on guesswork. So what actually happens if it's found? Let's take this seriously, step by step, because the honest answer requires confronting several layers of near impossible odds stacked on top of each other. The first obstacle is simply finding it at all. Voyager 1 is small, roughly the size of a car, and it is moving through a region of space that is, for all practical purposes, infinitely large and almost perfectly empty. Even a civilization actively searching nearby star systems for artificial objects would need extraordinary luck or extraordinary technology to notice something the size of Voyager 1 against the scale of interstellar space. It emits no light of its own. Its radio transmitter, the one instrument still faintly reaching Earth today, will fall silent sometime in the 2030s, and once its power supply drops below the threshold needed to run anything at all. After that, Voyager 1 becomes exactly what it will remain for the rest of cosmic time. A cold, dark, silent object drifting without a signal, distinguishable from any other piece of debris only by its shape and, if you get close enough, its markings. The second obstacle is time. Voyager 1 is not headed toward any particular star. It is not aimed at anything. Its trajectory was shaped by gravity assists off Jupiter and Saturn decades ago, and from this point forward it simply continues in a straight line, unaffected by friction or atmosphere or any force strong enough to meaningfully redirect it. In roughly 40,000 years, it will pass within about 1.6 light-years of a star called Gliese 445, not close enough for any kind of visit, just close enough to count as a near miss on a cosmic scale. After that, it keeps going and going. Sagan himself estimated that the record would remain playable and intact for at least 8 billion years, protected from erosion by the near-total vacuum of interstellar space. A billion years is not a typo. It is longer than the time separating us from the first complex multicellular life on Earth. Whatever eventually encounters this object, if anything ever does, may not share a single ancestor with anything currently alive on this planet, because by then, nothing currently alive on this planet may still exist in any recognizable form. So, layer those two obstacles together. an object smaller than a delivery van, drifting through a volume of space so large that stars themselves look like scattered dust. For a length of time so vast it dwarfs the entire history of human civilization by a factor of thousands. The honest, sober, scientific answer to what happens if it's found is that, statistically, it almost certainly never will be. Sagan knew this. The team that built the record knew this, and they built it anyway. That decision is the actual heart of this story, and it's worth sitting with for a moment before we go further into the hypothetical, because you can look at the Golden Record as an attempt to communicate with aliens. And, on the surface, that's what it is, but look closer and it starts to look like something else. It looks like a species trying to leave proof of itself behind, not because it expects anyone to receive that proof, but because the act of trying mattered on its own terms. Sagan once described the record as a bottle cast into the cosmic ocean, and the phrase is more precise than it might first sound. Nobody who puts a message in a bottle and throws it into the sea genuinely expects a reply. They do it because something in them needs to reach outward anyway. Now, let's actually walk through the hypothetical, because it's worth taking seriously even against these odds. Suppose, against every probability, something does eventually find Voyager 1. What would that discovery actually look like, and what would it actually mean? The first thing to understand is that whatever finds it would almost certainly not be biological in the way we think of biology, given the timescales involved, hundreds of thousands or millions or billions of years. Any civilization capable of intercepting a small drifting object in the vast dark between stars would need detection technology so far beyond our own that the encounter itself tells you something. It tells you that whatever finds Voyager 1 is not a young civilization stumbling onto its first contact. It is almost by definition an old and capable one. Old enough and capable enough to notice a signal of this faint, this small, this far outside anything resembling a well-traveled route through space. That single fact changes what the discovery would actually mean. This would not be two roughly equal civilizations meeting each other partway. It would be something vastly more advanced encountering evidence of something vastly less advanced, possibly extinct for so long that the very concept of humanity might be, to them, closer to archaeology than diplomacy. And that reframes the entire Golden Record project in an unsettling way. It was never really designed for the aliens of our imagination, the ones who show up in fiction, speaking English and negotiating treaties. It was designed, whether the team fully realized it at the time or not, as a kind of tombstone, a record placed into the void on the reasonable assumption that whoever eventually reads it will be reading about a species long gone, a civilization that no longer exists in any form capable of speaking for itself. Think about what that means for the actual content of the record. Every choice, the sounds of laughter, the greetings in 55 languages, the images of children, of cities, of the human body, all of it becomes something closer to a eulogy than an introduction. Not hello, we are here, but here is what we were once, a very long time ago, before whatever happened to us happened. That is a genuinely strange thing to have launched into space in 1977 without fully articulating it that way at the time. There's a second layer here that rarely gets discussed, and it has to do with what the finders would actually be able to understand. The record includes a diagram explaining how to play it, using the physical constants of hydrogen as a universal unit of measurement on the theory that basic atomic physics should be the same everywhere in the universe, and therefore comprehensible to any species capable of spaceflight. This is a reasonable bet. Hydrogen behaves the same way here as it does 50,000 light-years away, but everything encoded past that point, the music, the languages, the specific cultural content, assumes something far less certain, that concepts like melody, or the aesthetic pleasure of a rhythm, or the emotional weight carried by a human voice, are things that translate at all outside of human biology. It's entirely possible that an intelligence capable of finding and decoding the record's basic physical instructions would still find the actual content, the music, the images, the greetings, essentially meaningless. Not because the technology failed, but because the experience the record is trying to convey may be something that only makes sense to a nervous system shaped like ours. This is the part of the story that turns the Golden Record from a simple, hopeful gesture into something closer to genuine philosophy. It was built by people who understood, at some level, that they were not really writing a letter that would be read and answered. They were encoding proof of an experience, hoping that proof alone would carry some kind of meaning even if the specific content did not translate cleanly. And they did this knowing that the record's most likely fate was never to be found by anyone at all, but simply to keep moving forever, carrying something that mattered to the people who made it, regardless of whether it was ever received. Now, bring this back to where Voyager 1 actually is right now, in 2026, because the Golden Record's future is directly tied to the spacecraft's present. Voyager 1 is dying slowly and on a fixed schedule. Its 3 power generators, which convert the heat from decaying plutonium into electricity, are losing about 4 watts of output every single year, a decline that cannot be repaired, reversed, or paused. Instruments have been shut down, one by one, to conserve what power remains, and sometime in the early 2030s, the last one will fall silent. After that point, Voyager 1 will still exist, will still be moving. Will still be carrying its record, but it will no longer be capable of telling us anything about itself or the space it moves through. It becomes, at that moment, exactly what the record was built to remain. An artifact rather than an instrument, a message with no more sender attached to it. There is something quietly moving about that transition, if you sit with it. Right now, Voyager 1 is still a scientific tool, still sending back data, still part of an active human effort to understand the universe. But the moment its last watt of power runs out, it stops being a machine we operate and becomes instead exactly what the Golden Record has been the entire time. A sealed message sent, and now simply waiting. No further input from us will change anything about it ever again. From that point forward, its entire story belongs to physics, to time, and to whatever, if anything, eventually crosses its path. So what actually happens if the Golden Record is found? The honest answer is that almost certainly nothing ever will find it. Not in any time frame that intersects with anything we could call the future of our own species. But if something eventually does, whether in 10,000 years or 10 million, it will not be meeting us. It will be excavating us. Reading the physical evidence of a civilization that built something capable of outlasting its own sun and trying to piece together from a gold disk and a set of pulsar coordinates who we were and whether we mattered. Carl Sagan is gone now. Nearly everyone who worked on the Golden Record is gone now. The spacecraft itself will likely outlive every current human institution, every language currently spoken, and possibly the species that built it, and it will keep moving anyway, carrying that record whether or not anyone is ever there to press play